the game dev Q&A. I'm Andrew. I'm not Gabe. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Gabe.
And you're yeah.
He's the programmer of the team, essentially. I'm the artist.
This is the artist. We're working on a game called Super Plexis. We've been working on it for a year. It's going to come out in a few months for the iOS, and we kind of want to walk you through what it's been like. And it's been a crazy journey. So we're just going to get right into it.
Oh, what's going on, Gabe?
Hey, Ed. Just playing my favorite phone game.
Really? You sounded like you were gonna...
Oh, yeah, it's called Money Hole. It's awesome. You just keep throwing money in the hole, and sometimes you get the money back.
That sounds amazing.
Well, you never threw enough. Stop!
Let me show you something.
So that was our panel. Thank you guys for coming. One thing we do want to mention is that just before we get into this, we've got another panel at 8 p.m. and it's tonight in room 2425. It's right at the left side of the building as you come in. It's right there. This is a 2-hour block. What we're going to do is a tournament with our game. Our game's a competitive iOS puzzle game, and it's extremely fast-paced, very real time. So it's a tournament of 32 people. Evie and Tara in the back there, they can help you sign up for the tournament if you're interested. We can take 16 reservation signups right now, and then there's going to be 16 walk-ins when we get in there.
So we're kind of aware of the mobile game market right now, what people kind of think when they download a mobile game. So there's just a few points I have here. Everyone's seen the not true multiplayer. It's just kind of social media stuff. There's energy meters. And then all of that is some real thoughts I have about it, but I just don't have time to get into that right now. But I've played some mobile games and I have some strong feelings about how they're structured. So, there are good mobile games though, and I'm sure some of these will be familiar to you guys.
Like Ridiculous Fishing and Hearthstone, Monument Valley.
And they're aware of the platform that they're on, and some of them are paid games and some are free, and they do kind of fair mechanics. So.
The main fact, though, is that they utilize touch input very, very well, which is something really hard to get right on iOS.
A lot of console gamers struggle with it. And of course, everyone's playing this Pokemon Go right now. So that's...
If you can get into the server, of course.
Yes.
So what makes a free-to-play game good?
Yeah, so we kind of thought about, what's sort of the way to do good free-to-play? And so our golden rule is sort of, we want every purchase to really matter for the player, and it shouldn't affect the fairness of the core gameplay. We're giving on any unfair advantages. And if that sounds familiar to you, maybe you've played MOBAs and games that, the gameplay is very fair and it's usually the same, but you can pay money for skins or convenience items to kind of boost your leveling for your account. So that's sort of what we've been looking at for inspiration.
Now we're about to jump into how we started with Super Plexis. And before we do that, we just want to say this isn't a how-to or a tutorial, because there's a billion ways you can make a game and a billion infrastructures you can do it on. And there's a bunch of ways you can do it wrong, there's a bunch of ways you can do it right. This is just our story. So what we did might not work if you try it out for you, but what you do might not work for us. Everybody's different, and this is just how we did it. So this is sort of our story behind Super Plexis. When I was a kid, I didn't know I was going to program, but I knew that I liked to do a lot of wall jumps in Super Metroid. This is kind of weird. I did this with every game. In Zelda Ocarina of Time, I rebeat it trying to jump sideways, because you jump sideways faster than you run forward. I was deconstructing gameplay mechanics really young. I didn't even realize I was doing it until I approached the age of about 12. Part of the reason I was doing this, I think, is because I had sort of an unspoken appreciation for the simplicity of computers tied into the complexity of the games that we were putting on them. In actuality, a game is just an array of extremely simple concepts put together, and they sort of govern what actions you can do to help you or break you in achieving the challenge that the developer set out for you. The fact is, though, this is just a calculator. It's just addition the whole time. It's all the computer's doing, and at the heart of it, that's all gameplay is. It's nothing more than that. Sort of an analogy, you know. But where I kind of started was with something called ActionScript. I was 12 years old, and I liked this game called Motherload. Gabe and I both liked this game.
A lot early when I was in high school.
Gabe's my older cousin, so I was 12 and he was in high school. I was in high school,
Yeah.
But the idea is that you dig down. You dig down, you got a ship, you got HP, and you got fuel. If you run out of fuel, you die. If you run out of HP, you die. You can upgrade your ship. You have to get down to about 7,000 feet into the ground. And at that point, you sort of fight the final boss. I didn't want to bring out a spoiler, but I mean, this is a kind of new game, so I think it's all right.
It's safe.
The fact is, though, that this game was made in ActionScript, and I was inspired by this game. So I took a hatchet and went at this and tried to figure it out. That was kind of where I started. With iOS, it's a total different thing because it's not really. You don't really have software that is just going to give you graphics, for example, that you can just sort of draw and then put in and get out. There is hope, yeah. But what you kind of have to do is get used to actual programming, not so much scripting. And the main languages that Apple wants you to use for its IDE, Xcode, which allows you to code in. You use Swift and Objective-C usually. There are other options, but this is just the basic kind of thing. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, that's sort of what we kind of went back and forth between for a little while before selling with Objective-C. Now, you guys might have heard like Unity or Unreal Engine or RPG Maker, stuff like that. Xcode actually has a version of this. These are APIs that allow you to quickly interface with core gameplay, essentially. And, you know, when I was starting out with ActionScript, that's kind of what I wanted. I just wanted to make a game. I didn't really want to figure out how to program. But I found out that with this, if you make a game in SpriteKit, it's going to be a SpriteKit game. If you make a game in Storyboards, it's going to be a menu game. And if you make a game in Playgrounds, well, Playgrounds is actually just, it helps you sort of see the action of your code a little bit faster than compiling the entire build. So Playgrounds is actually just good for whatever you do. It's kind of a cool thing. But if you do download Xcode, you've never programmed before, you should check out SpriteKit and Storyboards if you kind of want to get started. So that's sort of just to give the intro where I started, and if you're interested in starting, because the statistics say 50% of the people in this room are going to try it or already have tried it, that's a good place to start if you're interested in touch controls and iOS. And obviously, we're interested in Android too, but being two people, it's sort of the priority that we get one thing down and kind of move on to the next later. So,
all right, so I'm going to sort of move things over to the art and animation and sound of games. And sort of, like my beginning was, I guess, where most kids are. With art, you know, you have a sketch pad and you're drawing things that you like. But then in high school, I discovered Photoshop, and I found I liked like synthesizing images more than I liked drawing. And then eventually turned into learning After Effects and some animation. But I never really studied like character art or doing character animations. Like, it was all very new to me. Essentially, the idea behind what we started doing was we wanted to recreate something with the Super Nintendo aesthetic. We really liked games from that era. And so, because I knew that, okay, we have to use pixel art, that was a very, you know, it was a good way to ease me into sort of a new territory for art, because it's very limited. Like pixel art, you can see here, it's only a 15 by 15 pixel grid, and there's really only so many options you have when you're doing something like a face. So you might try a few things, but at the end of the day, you only have so much detail, so it's easy to make a design, settle on it, and just move forward. You might notice a lot of popular games these days use pixel art, and I personally think this is because, you know, these guys are making games by themselves a lot of the time, and pixel art's a little bit easier to get into. If you're, say, a programmer and want to have a lot of art experience, it's easy to kind of pick that as an art style. So you might recognize some of these games. And they don't even necessarily have to be, you know, high detail or quote-unquote nice art. If you look at something like Nidhogg, it's a very, very simple art style, but the developer wasn't worried about his art. He just wanted to get his idea out there. So he went with something very, it ended up being very iconic. It was just, you know, single colors, silhouettes, and it was a very fun game that people got into, regardless, you know, whether you like the style of it.
Involving art with the gameplay changes the dynamic of what's good, what's bad. It's not about how detailed it is at that point. It's about how it plays and how it looks when you're playing. So it's really a combined effort.
So things like, you know, a boss battle in Undertale versus a boss battle in Super Metroid are two very different things. You know, one's trying to kind of charm you with the characters, and the art doesn't necessarily need to be as scary and detailed as like a Super Metroid boss, because they're both doing very different things with their games. And I guess if anyone is totally new to art, I mean, there's a lot of options out there. I did start with Photoshop, and I'm still using that today. It does take a little work to get working with pixel art well, but there's tons of free options like GIMP, graphic scale. All these are free, and a lot of people make great things, even with Microsoft Paint down there. Believe it or not, a lot of people still do some pretty cool stuff with that. And then, you know, as you're learning, you can go to YouTube. I've watched tons of tutorials, and just to pick up, you know, different techniques and stuff, and you can post things on pixelation.org is a great site with really friendly people who'll give you feedback even if you're totally new. And even the pixel art subreddit's a good place. And that's pretty much all I have to say on art. We're gonna just show a clip from the vlog about kind of sound. We've recently started putting sound into our game, and we have a lot of videos like this on our channel, so if you want to see more, feel free to check that out.
Every Wednesday.
That's a good
Oh,
sound.
are you rolling?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm using Logic Pro just because it's what I have.
Alright, anyway, it's on our YouTube channel. You can, I don't know
For the sake of time, sound is a very interesting thing. Gabe's working on the most right now.
Yeah, you can check that out. For the sake of time, we'll just move forward.
Yeah.
So, why don't you go ahead and introduce us
Yeah.
to this?
So we kind of want to show what the first sort of iteration of our game was. When we first started working on Super Plexis, there was this big kind of hurdle trying to figure out exactly what we were making, because we wanted to kind of revolutionize what a puzzle game is. Game's not out yet, but later on tonight, if you want to see how it works, it'll be in multiplayer form, competitive fashion. So, and we'll be demoing it at the end of this. But we thought it would be really interesting to take the spirit of classic puzzle games and RPG games, and so what we kind of want to figure out is how do we get over the match 3 dilemma that is.
Yeah, so if you look at puzzle games nowadays, you'll see these kind of similar things. It's square boards. A lot of them kind of limit your match ability. You can only move a match if it's actually going to create a match 3. And it's usually like a single player game, and it's just like the content's mostly about levels and grinding, and it's not a very multiplayer friendly environment.
Yeah, we felt like there was just this sort of homogenous game design, and we wanted to break that.
And so when we were coming up with, okay, how do we try to make this new puzzle game, like this basically next generation thing, and we got kind of excited and a bit over our heads, and it was like, well, we love games like Earthbound and Final Fantasy with like their maps, and Zelda's, interactive items, and oh yeah, Resident Evil 4's inventory was kind of an interesting mini game in itself. And it would be really cool. It would be really cool if like all the stats actually, affected your gameplay in this like cool puzzle battle way. And yeah, that was a tall order.
It was a tall order, but we wanted to try it,
And we called it a puzzle
action RPG. Puzzle action.
Persian Parmesan.
But this was a tall order, and we just so you know, when we started, we thought this was going to take us 3 months, and it's been a year.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of transitioning. Just going to say that, but. This is what we started on in July last year. I started working on an engine to get us kind of going, basically just a 2D engine, because we wanted to implement sprite, or rather sprite-based pixel art. And so I kind of tried to use SpriteKit because, again, I thought this wasn't going to take very long, and SpriteKit had kind of had this huge like Apple's revolutionary quote over it that it was going to be this thing that was going to change 2D APIs forever, and it wasn't. It was extremely inefficient for what we needed it to do. So we had an engine running. We had a graphics engine kind of working, and I started trying to code levels just to make sure that we could get it working, and so we could sort of work on environments. And what I realized is that we sort of needed a Photoshop for the game. So I started working on an SDK, which stands for Software Development Kit, where we could create the entire game in a separate application, and then use the engine and the gameplay mechanics that were written in code, and combine them together to get a the product. So this worked. Basically, the SDK created levels for us, we went into the SDK to create the levels. We could define what the animations of sprites were. We could define what the quests were. We could write AI, set up rigid bodies, everything. It was really, really cool. I'll never forget working on this thing. This was like my baby for like 3.5 months.
I got to use it a lot too because it was very user friendly.
Thanks.
Yes.
So, as far as gameplay is concerned, the idea was basically that you'd have roaming enemies that you could run into. And if you did collide with them, a match would start. The battle system basically worked like this. Timer would start, you'd be in your landscape mode, and then you'd have to rotate your phone to go into the battle. So there was like a physical aspect of kind of like getting into it. And we really liked it. And
Yeah,
you'll see a video of it soon.
we'll
And you had to defeat your enemy by making their board hit the top for a certain amount of time. And if you beat them, they would drop something, and then you could use this item to help you in the future. You could then equip the item if it was an equipable, or boost one of your stats or something like that using the maps inventory. And the story maps stand for material. What was it?
It was
an A. It was something. It was a long time ago, but
yeah.
the items would give you stats, and they would basically give you character progression from that and help you complete the process.
So with the art, it all started with the blocks because that was sort of the core gameplay that was supposed to be what was new and kind of fun about it. So this just sort of shows like art from the very beginning and kind of where we've come today. But with the RPG comes character design, and there is a team member missing here today. My younger sister actually she does a lot of illustration on paper, but she also draws things on tablets. And she was a very helpful character illustrator. So I would take drawings she had and sort of use them to build sprite concepts. We eventually adapted the art style to better fit the phone and created a cast of characters because an RPG needs some kind of story and characters. So this is all just a little sampling of where we were going, but things did change.
Things did begin to change, but before that, we do want to show you some of the cool environment stuff.
And we did. I mean, we built a couple levels initially. We had a big forest and sort of this town area, and plans to expand it out to, in an RPG you want a lot of diverse areas, so we wanted like a city, and we would eventually go to, all over the place.
No, the SDK was actually, I wrote it in Java, and again, just because of the speed to make an application that could generate a file that I could then just input to the gameplay. I wrote that in Java over the course of a few months. So we have a demo to show you of what we basically had after 6.5 months of working on this thing from scratch. And so this was in December of 2015.
It was sort of a cool moment for us because all these things we had planned, we at least had some kind of demo of it all together in working in some form. And we would show it to people around us, and they were really excited, like, okay, cool, when are you guys gonna be done? That was basically our answer, because in 6 months we only had that much as we were kind of going through and learning everything.
There were 6 main areas in the game that basically made up the universe in our game, or at least the world within the universe of our game. And we had one area almost finished. Granted, there was a lot of pre-development like the SDK, and we were still learning so much about iOS in the first place, but we knew, this was going to take us at least another 1.5 to 2 years. And we kind of had to take a break and reevaluate where we were at and figure out exactly what game we were trying to make.
Yeah.
So what happened? What happened was I did some tests on the engine, and I found that the game we were trying to make wasn't going to cut it for the engine, the engine wasn't going to cut it for the game we were trying to make. And I usually compare the old engine to a toaster in that I would rather ponder the mechanics of a toaster than code in that engine ever again, just because of where I am now with the current engine. very happy with it, which we'll show you very soon. Okay, we're good for time. And so I started rewriting some things. I basically told Gabe, I was like, I'm working on some, performance enhancements. I'm kind of cutting my Christmas break a little bit early. Nothing drastic. And what I did tell him was that they were not just performance enhancements. I was stripping apart the entire game in order to basically rewrite the entire foundation, and it was something very drastic. So,
yeah, and I mean, up to that point, the friends and family we were showing to really got absorbed into the puzzle, the gameplay, and that's kind of, like, we were glad to see that was the main focus of it, but we did start to think, okay, if we want to really condense down our vision for this and get something in a way, without basically killing ourselves to do it, then let's really focus in on that gameplay and really make that the shining part of the game.
So what we ended up doing was we took our family's advice, because they were always so intrigued by the battle system, even though it was the thing that we worked on the least, and they always asked us, is there going to be multiplayer? And we were like, that would be so cool, but so hard to do with the RPG. But what we did do is, in this time, basically last December, this January, February, and March, where we were basically, I was working on the engine all over again in faith that Gabe was going to work on all of this crazy asset stuff that I would implement in the future, which he did. And he was doing that in faith that I would get the engine working. Yeah. There were months of basically just believing
and it was all working toward basically building a multiplayer-focused version of the game.
Yes.
And I mean, this transition might sound familiar to anyone that knows Blizzard and kind of what they were going to do. Plot Project Titan. They were going to build this next-gen huge MMO, and no one really knows what happens to it or what happened to it because they don't talk about it. But some leaks suggest that maybe Overwatch is, rose from the ashes of whatever their MMO used to be. But they recycled characters and kind of the world vision that they were going to do. And essentially, we found that to be a pretty attractive option because we had built a world for an RPG. We had established a story, we had characters that would be suited perfectly for continuing that art style into a more multiplayer-focused vision. And so that's, this is where we are today. Now,
we have a really cool competitive Iowa's puzzle action game with a lot of strategy in it, and what we want to do is show that to you.
So we've got a little bit of time left. Andrew's just going to plug his phone in, and we're just going to demo the connection. You'll only see Andrew's phone, but you'll see my board up at the top of the screen.
Yeah. Gabe and I are going to play against each other, and I'm going to beat him so bad.
We'll see.
We'll see about that. We are going to be using a Bluetooth connection because there's actually no Wi-Fi here. So.
That's a good sound.
So we're just going to show 1v1 match. There's a classic mode that we're working on right now. Basically, while Gabe's getting set up, we have a beta coming out at the end of September, beginning of October. And what we're doing right now is we're taking an email list from anybody who wants to here, and we're going to get hopefully 1,000 people, which is the maximum that we can get for the beta, considering the servers. And it's going to be awesome. We just want a lot of people to be a part of the development of this thing. And so if you guys want to be a part of it, it's really serious for us, that we're not just making the game for us, we're making this for everybody. So being a part of the beta basically means that you can play the game and you can send us feedback, what you think would be cool to add, what you think might be imbalanced or whatever. And the single player will also be in the beta, but since it's in development right now, we're not going to show any of that right now. We'll see if this works first try, because Bluetooth is, all right, that worked. So, it's a match 3 game, right? Basically, if you match 3, you can send deadblocks to your opponent. Deadblocks are these impassable blocks that fall from the top, and Gabe just made a pretty good combo, I guess, and sent that over to me. So, now I can't select this, I can't do anything with it, it's totally in my way. You might see the health bars at the top left and the top right. Mine is at the top left, and Gabe's is at the top right. If I hit the top of the board, I start to take consistent damage like this. And so I might want to use a bomb to get rid of that. Gabe, don't come in too fast because I'm trying to talk about that. Here, So let's talk about how you might get rid of one of these dead blocks. If I make a match that's touching it, it'll get rid of it and it'll turn it into normal blocks that you can maneuver. So Gabe's gonna throw me what's called a super Plexis. He took all the blocks on his board and threw them over to me. And I had to use a bunch of bombs to get rid of them, and I only have one left. Gabe, how many bombs do you have left?
I have 10. I don't use that either.
So he's winning, basically. But I'm also talking, so. Hey, yeah! I'm totally getting wrecked right now. So, I'm very serious about game development, you guys.
Well, we don't let him play the game. He just has to.
I just work on it. I don't get to actually play it. Gabe doesn't let me play it. So, another match, and I'll do it again.
I messed up. He still beat me. I guess you are decent at this.
I'm alright, I did make it. But you made it too, my dear. I'll invite you this time. So, that meter goes up as you make matches, and when it hits the top, 48 blocks that are passable, or movable, I guess is a better way to put it, from the top of your board will be sent over to your opponent in a very animated fashion. So I'm going to try to set one up real quick. So when you get a super Plexis, the idea is this: you actually want a higher board, because then you can send more of it over to your opponent. And now if you look at Gabe's board, he's getting wrecked.
Oh!
Good luck, bro!
Okay, I'm good. But I'm out of bombs. Almost.
Health blocks. If you make a match of 3 with a health block, this is this little health thing here. If you're looking at my health, I have 144 right now. I'm gonna take some. Oh, I got it, but it went up by 100. So the last way that you can take damage in the game is currently the last way you can do it is by a dead block falling on your board. When it falls on your board, the size of the dead block determines how much damage you take from it. So if Gabe sends 1 dead block, I'll take exactly 3 damage. If he sends a dead block that is of the size 3x3, I'll take 9 times 3 damage, 27. So you take more, basically, if you get hurt. You want to really focus on watching your health so that you can save yourself, kind of like that.
I mean, it is a multiplayer focused game. The idea is being able to play online with other people, but we will have kind of a classic mode single player
Sort of.
game with like basically a traditional world map where you can go. But I mean, I guess we can get into those details later.
You basically make your character, you can choose between Aria and Clef, and you have to type your name, the difficulty you want, and then you can play. But this just sends you into a test match right now, so this is sort of development kind of thing, and there's some AI that my opponent's doing, but we're going to ignore that for right now.
Early stuff.
Yeah. You might also notice that it says no rank at the top right. We're going to be throwing in an ELO-based rating system where you can basically play against people that are similar skilled. And the ELO rating system is going to be similar to League of Legends or Dota. They use the same mathematics for that. So,
yeah, I mean, that could definitely be. I mean, that's the sort of thing where we're really curious to hear everyone's thoughts on.
you should be in the beta.
Yeah. Look at you in there.
But that's a really cool idea. We want to take it really far. Yeah.
Oh well, just grab an iPad. Friends or family, it'll run.
We'll send you a device. Right now, each character in the game is randomized because we've been working on getting ready for this con since 7 a.m. this morning. So the fact is that
2 weeks
we
later.
couldn't really get character selection and stuff like that, the UI ready for it. So we balanced every character to work the exact same. Again, because it's too hard to figure out over the course of 10 minutes, which character is better for my playstyle? Which one has more attack? Which one has more defense? Which one do I want more HP? But you don't want to figure that out and be all stressed before a tournament in a game that no one's ever played before. So we decided to make every character the same, just for now. So we want to take some questions from you guys if you have any, and just kind of roll this thing out, because for the most part we're all finished. So,
Yep.
You guys got anything? Deadblocks on your character or in the space that your character is, the deadblocks that you will send, the number of spaces that deadblock space equates to, shows. Yeah. I should have mentioned that, but we do tell you how many deadblocks you're going to send. The moment you send them is basically when your combo multiplier has finished being recorded. And what you'll see is that graphic will go slide up, and the deadblocks on your opponent's board will fall down. In multiplayer, you can also see what your opponent's deadblock count is, so you can be ready for how much they're going to send.
And you had a question here?
So are we sponsored? How are we doing this?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked as sort of a freelancer in graphic design, and I mentioned that for Fox earlier. I've taken odd jobs here and there, but we are graciously supported by our family at the time, because they basically agreed that, you know, we initially said, we're going to take a couple months and just see how far we can get. And they were basically very excited about what we were doing, even though they didn't really understand it. You know, we don't have a ton of gamers in our family or anything. But I will say that I read a lot about other game developers, and I showed Stardew Valley earlier, and I think that guy, he worked on that game totally by himself
For 4 years.
for 3 or 4 years, and he just worked a job as like a movie theater usher, and in his spare time,
He taught
just
himself
come home and code.
He taught himself code from scratch.
So it really becomes your whole life for a while. I mean, you have to almost be. We very naively thought we could just kind of like
Three
dabble
months.
in it, and you know, maybe if we made something much simpler, we could have been done in a few months. But we didn't want to just throw Flappy Bird club in there.
I mean, we might. Game's not out yet, guys. We could be lying to
Anything
you
can
right now.
happen. Yeah.
We're not. We're not.
I would say, I mean, it definitely comes with some sacrifice, but you know, we all have those moments of spare time. So it's just how do you live your life and also work on something like this? But it's doable. People do it more and more all the time.
But we don't currently have any investors or sponsors.
No.
So that's sort of where it's at. It's really just from. So we had some questions over here. I don't know who went first, but I think you did. If the game is successful, are we going to port it to other devices? Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
We believe in this project, seriously. We spent a year on it for one device.
Like,
Okay, thanks. We only got 5 minutes left, so we can only take a couple more questions, but we're serious about getting this on other devices, and the fact is that with the demand, we're going to get it on Android next, and then we're going to go from there. So, yes. The reason we chose Apple first is because we use iPhones. Yeah.
It's just kind of what we had, so we're like, let's just put something on what we've got. And a lot of our friends and family have them too, so maybe we live in a little microcosm, but that's.
We do live in an Apple family, yeah. But I respect Android for its processor speed and memory management. We can take one more question, but the next panel is about to come in. We don't want to win us, so.
We will be hanging out, I mean, outside.
Yeah, so if you guys are interested in keeping this going after, we're gonna be out there. But if we want one more question here, we can take it. If not, what's up? Do you know what my first words were about Xcode? This is trash.
I mean, we worked in the same room for 6 months until like some life situations ended up us. But we had like a dedicated office, and I would hear Andrew ranting constantly about SpriteKit and Swift crashing and Xcode. Like, it's really not the easiest thing, but I mean,
It's a high learning curve with Xcode. Here's the deal: make some small applications one at a
Yeah.
time, and eventually the big project
we were
just
making
goes,
it
'cause that's what I started to do.
ourselves, I guess. We had a big idea, maybe, and we were trying not to use it a lot. Yeah.
Xcode expects you to be totally committed to it as an IDE. A lot of people might know about Eclipse, which a lot of people program in Java with. Much more user-friendly IDE, and the fact is that they're not the same. They're completely different. Once I accepted that I just had to learn a new IDE, it got really easy because I just went on the internet and figured out how people had been using Xcode for 4 years. Yeah, and it just ended up working out just fine. So that was our panel. We want to get out of here, and we're going to be out there if you guys want to hang out.
Yep.
Thank
Stop
you
by the
guys so
tournament.
much. Come
Thanks
to the
for coming.
tournament, 8 p.m. Sign up for the beta. Follow us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're all over the social media stuff. Big business cards too. Thank you.